democracy is what I run into when I run into these people, like, constantly.
Could you read that one more time?
Yeah, the whole thing, or?
Just the end, half of the end.
So such a world with all its contradictions can be saved, can yet be born again, but not out of property, capital, interest, and gold. So the idea, and that's the idea I was telling him earlier, like, the world has a monopoly on efficiency, on productivity, on, like, people say we need to build a better mousetrap. Occupy has to be smarter and I was like, no, we need to be more empathic. Like, Wall Street has a monopoly on all the smart people, on all the efficient systems. We're not out here trying to outsmart them, outproduce them, out-efficiency them. We're here to, like, outlove them, outcare them, out-creative them, like, those types of concepts. The ones that aren't quantified in capitalism or in, like, our social narratives. And, like, there's a fear to that, and there's a fear to, like, real democracy, and there's a fear to this consensus process. When they have them storming the gates of, like, supply, asking for stuff, there's a fear, like, the rabble's coming. It's like, open up your gates, just give up your shit. Open up the books to finance, give away the money. And people hate that. They hate that there's, like, a repulsion, because I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a cultural thing, too.
There is. I mean, it was funny, like, when I went to get the money for the bike and table and stuff.
You're the one who did that with finance?
Yeah.
I hate working with them.
Oh, I found I was fine working with finance. I mean, it was actually really funny because when I walked into their office, they asked me what working group I was with, and I was like, well, I'm with Free Literature. And they're like, is that a real working group? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, we can't give you the money then. And it was like, the GA said you can give us money. And we're like, oh, then we can. But no, they were all fine. But it was funny, like, before I even got in there were these two guys talking at the door, and it was about the money and about how the money was the problem, and so what they were talking about was just like, we should just have a big bonfire and burn the whole pile, and I was like, and then one of the guys turned to me and he was like, what are you here for? I was like, money.
I think that's sort of like a privileged thing. It's sort of silly, like, because that's a resource. Wasting a resource isn't just logical, and it's not, like, empathetic to people who actually suffer because of a lack of that resource.
Yeah, no, I
agree
with that.
What should we do with all our extra meat? We should let it rot? We should burn it? It's like, no, give it to the fucking people who are starving. So.
Well, I think if it was food that, they'd have a different attitude toward it. I think, I mean, there are people in the movement who just, ideologically don't like money, and symbolically, that would have been a big statement for them, would be like, I mean.
That's what's interesting. That's a baggage, a psychological baggage to debt and to money that we have coming into this movement.
Right.
That we don't have that, like, self-reflection. That, like, you really have to, like, so much introspection. People like Graeber wrote that first 5,000 Years of Debt book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Margaret Atwood wrote, she's a really good writer, a feminist writer, Canadian. She wrote a book about debt. Really interesting, right in time for the recession. But, like, we have this psychological, I mean, obviously because oppressive power structures have imposed it on us, and are, like, our religion and everything talks about debt, and, well, some aspects of it. And, like, and then so people come in here and they're, like, sort of suspicious and, like, superstitious about money.
Yeah.
When really just to show, like, that it's just, like, unused capital. So there's something I want to bring up before we get out, and then we'll get out of here soon.
Okay.
Try to catch up 2:30. So check this out. This is where we went to this morning.
All right.
This next pink slip might be yours. Imagine blah, blah, blah. So many people unemployed on the back. What can you do? Call to action. Insist that Congress and corporations invest in America. Bring our jobs back. Invest in the state. Petition the government. Insist on bipartisan collaboration, because that's what's wrong with the government, is they're not bipartisan enough. Demand that Congress support the presidents. Let's go to our biggest hierarchical leader, our president. Jobs first, deficits next. So the most important concern you should have is that you should work for someone else. Let's help you get a boss. Right? And then pass a tax increase on the 1%. Yeah, all this. It's low-level narratives, It's reformist, right?
Definitely.
And stop outsourcing our jobs and take responsibility for bringing work back to America. That's like the lowest level of, like, critique on global capitalism, is that we just need more jobs in America. Totally ignoring, like, the overall systemic,
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny from an anarchist point of view, because, I mean, one of the things that anarchists want to do is have less work, fewer jobs, I mean, and, I mean, I think there's, some sense of there's like at least two competing notions of what wealth is, and you know, I mean, sort of the more mainstream one is that wealth is a matter of having more stuff, producing more things, accumulating, and you know, growing your collection of crap. And
We should be this.
right.
This perspective.
And the alternative to that is that you know, you build societies because societies produce individuals, and you know, so you've got individuals producing society, society produces individuals. It's like this weird hodgepodge thing, and the wealth of any given society is not the stuff it has, but it's the individuals within it. And so rather than, you know, dedicating our time to working for other people, you know, sort of renting ourselves out by the hour, we should be thinking about what we can do, you know, how we can, you know, how we can create our own individualities and how we can create other individuals. And so, I mean, that sort of community building effort is more, you know, in the lines of what anarchists want to do, whereas, you know, they're more worried about and, you know, to some extent that's habitual thinking because they're so used to depending on institutions to provide them with, you know, the money they need to just survive and subsist and to get all the plastic stuff that makes them, you know, satisfied for however short a period.
Well, this might be entry level to the discussion, and that's why I feel sort of torn. Is like, it's a great protest, a lot of people came out, and I was a part of it, and I didn't feel regret for being a part of it, but yet there's a more mature discussion to be had. Maybe this is where people start along the path to that more mature discussion, and then like, our job, other people, is to try to like open it up to show that like this is chess, not checkers.
Right.
You're not going to get anywhere with this type of thinking, but it's great that you're doing something. Something is better than nothing.
Sure.
And then that next step would be like something like this, our free literature.
Yeah.
Which like I talked to him a little bit about on the ferry, like capitalism, class struggle for ex-dummies. And like in the first couple of paragraphs here, like you pretty much lay out why like reform is thinking. It's like you don't want the job. It talks about what capitalism is, a simple process, money invested to generate more money. And then it talks about the commodification, that in order for that to be propagated, you have to constantly be commodifying things, turning them into money. And that's pretty much the problem, is the whole world becomes for sale then.
Yeah.
It's like
right.
an anarchist, like, what was it that Nirvana do, was able to the man who sold the world.
Yeah.
It's like you could approach this from any angle, from like the layman or... So, and that's... So I guess we can end on that. So what I feel is like... Occupy, I hope, doesn't lose that diversity of thought and that deep thought that we started off with, it seems. That the transformative nature of what we were trying to do, not issuing demands and stuff like that. And I feel like a pressure to do more actions like this, which are very low level, and get rid of that transformative element. And we want to actually like question capitalism, question these actual structures, not just ask for benevolent treatment by these power structures. Actually question their legitimacy, their authority, or even their logic, or their sustainability.
And I think part of the issue now is, you know, now that we don't have the occupation, we don't have the physical space in which we were doing that anymore. And I mean, the Occupy Town Square thing was a cool effort to rejuvenate that, but it's still not quite what it was, and that's...
Well, it's organized very much by the elitism in our
yeah.
Occupy, and that's part of the problem, is when you organize something along like cliquish elitist lines, even if it's not malicious, it's going to represent that narrow interest or that narrow...
Definitely.
Yeah. No fault of their own. Most of them might be reformists just because they're paid, institutional activists. So what do you think about, have you heard of this leadership council, the Occupy Manifest, collecting people from all over the nation for retreats? They want to do a couple a year. They want them to journal constantly, which is a total anarchist no-no. And like, well, I mean, like, just to submit these journals, and so, and like, they also want them to outline, if you look at the interview, like, to be in this leadership movement, it's super scary. Like, what are the projects, everything you've worked on before, everything you're working on projected out, we want you to be involved, at least like a couple year commitment. They want to filter about 5,000 people through this. Now, my question was like, who's organizing this? Who has access to the centralized information?
Right.
And what's their agenda and principles? Like, what are their values that you're buying into?